All right, so in this video, we're going to go over the Bootstrap Sandbox. We're going to set it up, talk a little bit about it, and take a look at it. Now, in your project files for this section, you should have two zip files. One is going to be called Bootstrap Sandbox Starter, and one is going to be called Bootstrap Sandbox Final. Now, final is just that, the final version. If you have some code in, you're doing a section and you want to see what the final HTML and Bootstrap classes and all that look like, you can reference this folder. The starter is what you're actually going to be working in. So I would suggest renaming it to, I'm just going to take the starter off and just call it Bootstrap Sandbox, and then that's what we want to work with. Now, we'll be using Live Server to open our files, but of course you can just go ahead and open up any file you want. And this is what the starter version looks like. You can see there's no Bootstrap classes or anything. If we were to look at like CSS components, buttons, there's no Bootstrap style buttons. That's the stuff that we're going to be adding. So basically we go by sections. We'll be dealing with utilities in section 2, and they're labeled here. CSS components, the grid and flexbox, and then finally JavaScript widgets. Okay, so this is what the starter looks like. Now, if we were to look at the, let's go to the final and open that up, you'll see that it actually has like the display classes, the block quotes. If we look at like alignment, everything's aligned. If we look at the buttons, okay, we add all the Bootstrap buttons. If we look at like the nav bars, so this is the stuff that we'll be adding. The grid system, we have some outlines where we'll go over how the grid system works, and then JavaScript, so like collapse and the accordion menu. So we're going to go over basically every part of Bootstrap 4 in this sandbox before we start on our projects. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, let me just close this stuff up. And I'm going to, in my Bootstrap Sandbox, not the final is basically just for your reference. I'm going to open this with VS Code, and I can just go ahead and right click and say open with code. And of course, whatever text editor you're using, you should be able to open up a folder inside of it. And you can see all the different files here. Now to take a look at the markup, okay, we just looked at the UI, but if we look at the markup, let's go to the top here. Basically, we're bringing in Bootstrap with a CDN. So if you were to go to getbootstrap.com and go, let's see, this is, get started. And you can see this is the link that we're using here to Bootstrap 4.1.1. It is possible that when you're watching this, it'll be a version that's a little later, but most things should still be the same. If not, you can just kind of wait on the parts that aren't for the course update, because I will be continuously updating this course. Now for the JavaScript stuff, we're going to need some scripts. So we have jQuery, and in this example and in the sandbox, we're actually using the slim version of jQuery. We won't be in our themes because there's some stuff we need that's not in the slim version. And then we also need Popper.js, which has to do with some of the tooltip stuff, and then of course the Bootstrap.js file. And if we look in our sandbox, every page down at the bottom is going to have those scripts. All right. Now we also have the navigation, which you can completely ignore. So where you see this header and then we have these drop downs, this is just basically to navigate around the sandbox. These are styled. You can see they do have Bootstrap styling, but you don't have to touch any of this. What you want to do is in each file, go down to where it says start here. Okay, that's where we're actually going to start in each section. And you can see there's no Bootstrap classes or anything. We're going to be adding that as we go. Everything is nicely commented, so you should know what's going on, where we are at all times. And then this here, if this is confusing you, this margin top, this is just going to bring everything up so that you don't have to constantly look at the bottom of the screen in the browser. I don't want you guys to have to do that, so I want to push everything up into the middle. Okay, so that's basically how all of these files are formatted. If I were to look at this file, you can see under the navigation, start here, and that's where we'll start. Okay, and sometimes we will see classes, Bootstrap classes already here, but it's always going to be something we've already talked about. So for example, this BG success has to do with color classes, and you can see we've already talked about that. So this color is background. This is where we'll be adding the BG success for backgrounds and stuff like that. Okay, so we'll never have any Bootstrap markup that we haven't talked about already done. We're gonna do everything on our own. All right, so just get this done, and if you want to open this with live server, you can just go to the first one here, say open with live server, and then we can just simply navigate around. Okay, so you really only have to open it once. And as we change our HTML and so on, this will auto update. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started in the next section, and we'll take a look at what we'll be doing in that section, and then we'll start on the first one. The first thing is going to be basic typography. All right, so let's go ahead and do it.